and welcome to SkyPod, yet another one-on-one series. And we have a very special guest with us today. He is Mr. Tendai Huchu, and he's an author from Zimbabwe. So welcome, sir. Thank you for taking time out and being a part of our podcast. We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I mean, the warmth of the reception that I've had at Skyline University has been exceptional. The students are smart and engaging. I think I should get a degree after I leave because I learned so much in my time here.
That's good to know. So I'm not going to beat about the bush. I'm going to jump right in. Where did it all start? What inspired you to become a writer?
I was at a love for literature when I was young. I mean, I was fortunate to live in a town with a good local library. There were libraries at the schools that I went to, and I fell in love with the written word, with stories, with myths, with fables as a young person. And in my 20s, I moved to the UK, and I was living alone for the first time and searching for meaning. And I found that when I was reading literature, there were these great writers that were grappling with these questions that were plaguing me as a young man, existential questions, the work of Dostoevsky, Camus, Sartre, that kind of thing. It spoke with me so deeply, so personally, so intensely, that at some point I had the hubris of a young man, which was to say, I'll have a go. Maybe I can get people to feel the way these writers have made me feel, so I can be part of this conversation of the human story that has been going on since time immemorial. So I decided to write as a way of exploring the world for myself, and hopefully in doing that, engaging in a conversation with other people.
Having said all of this, was writing a career path that was looked down upon when you were pursuing it?
No, because I come from a sort of background where I was expected to have a practical career, definitely not within the arts. And I can understand now why that might be the case, because it's a pretty precarious occupation to be in. You are at the whims of fate, as it were. The fact that you've written a really good book isn't a guarantee that it's going to be published at all. Or worse still, the guarantee that readers will even read it. It's a game of chance. And so it might be safer to do something more stable and more established. But if you've met many writers, a lot of us are compelled by whether it's the muses or something within us that we have to do this thing. So I have tried many things in my life, but writing is the one thing that I have stuck at, that I return to again and again. It's because it is a passion, and I'm fortunate to be in the place where it has become my occupation on a full-time basis.
I'm very curious to know the entire life cycle, the journey of writing. Yes. So when you think of a book, do you already have a plot in mind? Is it a daunting journey, or do you just go by instinct?
So when I was younger, I was what was called a pantser. So there's two types of writers, the plotters and the pantsers, the architects and the gardeners, right? So if you're a gardener or a pantser, you go in and you start working away and you write your story, but you don't quite know what is going to happen. You're feeling your way in, but by the end of it, maybe you've done a trimming of a bush here, you've grown a flower there. After the course of a year, your garden looks like something, but it's a bit of a random thing to do. The other side are the architects that are planners. You have a structure, you have a plan, and then you write off that plan, and it's very, very linear. You know what is going to come out at the end of it. And when I was younger, I was more of a pantser in the fact that I would go into these things and feel my way in because I was still learning my craft. Flash forward about 20 years later, I'm now a bit more of a plotter because I now do what's called an outline. I think deeply about what it is I'm going to do before I get into it. So I create my characters, what are going to be the plot points, and all those things. And then I write off that plan. But I still have the pantser in me in the sense that, did you hear this saying by Mike Tyson, which goes, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth? So when you start writing your characters, because you're trying to draw three-dimensional living, breathing beings in the text, they start making their own decisions that might not go according to the plan. And as a result, you have to make these adjustments as you go. So you become a bit of a blend of both.
I'm so intrigued by the names of your books. I got a chance to read a summary of The Library of the Dead. Do you come up with the names of the book before you start the actual story, or does it come along the way or towards the end of the book?
The titles for me, it's kind of weird because I have friends that tell me that their titles emerge from the text, but I already know the title of the book before I write. In fact, before the story really occurs to me, I have a title. And then it's almost like there's an invisible book that is yet to be written. I know the title, and now I must figure out exactly what that book is about.
Okay, so when it came to The Library of the Dead, it is staged in the post-catastrophe Edinburgh, and you brought in the Zimbabwean sort of culture into it with the magician or wannabe magician Ropa. How did you build on the protagonist, Ropa's character?
So I'm Zimbabwean myself, a migrant to Scotland. And one of the things that I kind of noticed is I have friends with kids, and they have this hybridity of a certain kind of Scottishness. So when they speak with their friends, they use Scots, which is its own unique language. But when they meet us old dinosaurs, they revert back to a standardized Shona. So it's almost, they do this really interesting switch. And I thought to myself, I want to write a book that features that kind of young person that straddles between the two culture in a seamless, flawless kind of way. And that's how I came up with the character of Ropa Moyo. She's a plucky, interesting strategist, a scrappy character, but she's also very, very mouthy and loud. She has an energy and a buzz about her. And I thought I could use her in this particular text as a narrator that would tell us something about the history of Scotland and have a bit of a commentary about the society that we live in today.
So, as I read the summary, I also read that Ropa is a ghost stalker, right? Is it something that is very popular is it something that you've grown up seeing and experienced, or it just came to you when you were writing the book?
So, when we talk about ghosts, the fascinating thing is, what exactly are we talking about, right? So there's maybe the spiritual element, like, a deceased person somehow popping back up in a non-physical form. This is used effectively in things like horror as a scary thing, as a spooky thing. So we can look at it in that dimension. But I look at ghosts as something more. They are sort of like a manifestation of some kind of unfinished business. And this is why in most ghost stories, a ghost comes back because something has happened that they want to be addressed before they move on. And because I told you I was using my books as a way of telling the history of Scotland and fitting it into the contemporary world that we live in today, I found this to be an effective device in terms of being able to draw figures from the past into the present so that I could have that contrast between these really old ghosts from historic Scotland and what they might think about Scotland today. Because ghosts can be a metaphor for something more than just, a spiritual entity. So for me, they are part of history.
That's a really nice perspective. So in your recent book, The Legacy of Honeston House, has Ropa's character evolved?
She's evolved a lot. So initially when we met her, she's a ghost stalker. She's trying to get into training to be a magician, and this isn't working out. A huge part of the story arc is her relationship between her and her grandmother, who's teaching her this traditional ghost stalking and all the kind of magic, and what in the book is called scientific magic that's based on the principles of the Scottish Enlightenment. And so there's a tension between the modern and the new that is going on in there. And so by the time we get to book 4, Ropa has grown, is becoming a bit more confident in herself as a young woman in a fantastic world, battling villainous villains and all that. But she's also getting a better sense that the society that she is in is a bit rigged. It's not, this magic that she's trying to practice is not as pure, and it has a history and a legacy that must be addressed. So I'd say she's evolved and become a lot more mature in her outlook in the world. And this is reflected even by changes that I've made in the text regarding how she uses language.
You use fiction very creatively to connect history as well. But why did you choose this genre, fiction? In considering the fact that we live in a very pragmatic world where people believe more on rational than fiction or magic. Why fiction as a genre?
Because everything is story. There is no space outside story. Who we are as human beings, our lives are explained through story. Story is where we go to find meaning. The irony of fiction is that it is an art form that, through lies, invented, made up things, reveals the truths of the human condition. And I kind of liken it to some of these abstract theories that we have. So if you have a map is not a true representation of the world. The world is 3-dimensional, it's big. But when you have a map, you can actually conceptualize what a place looks like. It can take you from A to B, and fiction for me is a map of our lives. It's through it we get to understand this complex thing that is human existence. It gets distilled into something that is a little bit simpler, and then we can start to understand ourselves. And that's why I do it.
So moving to the era that we are in right now, it's a very AI-dominated era. And what do you think? How is AI... Okay, let me make it short. AI in creative writing, is it a boon or a bane?
It's a new emerging technology that we don't quite understand yet. And so this is an interesting era that we're living in, which it feels like we're going through some kind of transition. The chips are in the air, and we don't quite know where they will land. For me as a creative, when I look at it, and I've used some of this generative AI stuff and the chatbots, yeah, they're very sophisticated, but you feel a certain kind of emptiness behind them, that they're regurgitating stuff as opposed to having a meaningful engagement with you. And this might be useful in certain instances, in certain kind of occupations where you need replication and mindless replication. But I think human ingenuity and creativity does not come from a space of replication. Every so often we get a flash of genius, and it's those flashes of genius that leapfrog us into the next thing. I think of someone like Einstein, who thought what it must be if he was standing on a beam of light hurtling through space, and through it he gave us the theory of relativity. For me, Einstein started with a story that he told himself, and he understood something fundamental about the universe. I don't think a machine could do that, because a machine can only ever replicate what it's been told before. It can't do anything new.
And having said all of this, what is the future of creative writing with AI in place? Somehow I feel like creators and writers are a tad lazy than before because they are over dependent on the technology. But how important is human touch in the coming days and in the future in terms of holding the essence of creativity?
Because we live our lives surrounded by technology and we are immersed in it. From the time you wake up, your alarm wakes you up and it's your phone, and you take a look and your diary is in your phone, and everything is mediated by some kind of technological interface. We've lost something, but we're also searching for something authentic. I was surprised to hear that sales of old school vinyl records have actually gone up in the UK because people are looking for that old scratchy quality of sound as opposed to the sanitized sound that you get from streaming platforms. People still go to live music performances for a reason. Why would you do that when you can just stream a song on YouTube? It's because we're looking for something that machines cannot give us, which is presence. When I read a book, I am interfacing with an author, someone who lived as I have lived through space and time. And if there isn't that presence behind it, there's nothing in there for me, because there's a certain kind of hollowness and a falseness to it that we can detect. Even when I've read stuff that's been generated by AI, I can quickly suss out that no, there's nothing there. There is no one there. Whereas I can read work by young writers that are starting out and experimenting, and maybe they have not yet mastered the craft, so they're a bit sloppy and they make errors. But the thing that they're doing probably moves me a lot more than something that comes out from a chatbot that might seem a bit more polished and sophisticated.
Okay, going back, I'm sure you had a lot of mountaintop moments where you had victories and small and big ones. But what about those valley moments when you had rejections? So let's go back to your first rejection. How did you take it? What was it? When was it? How did you take it? And how did you overcome it?
So I remember writing my first manuscript around 2003 and sending it out to publishers and agents and being really, really hopeful that I was going to get published. I was a young man then, with an ego the size of a small planetoid. But when the rejection came in, I was emotionally devastated. You know, how could they not understand what I was doing? I had poured my soul into this work, and it seems intensely personal. It doesn't feel like the work has been rejected. It feels like you yourself have been rejected. But what I quickly came to realize is that I needed to improve my craft. So you learn a lot more from the stuff that goes wrong than you do from the stuff that goes right, because you can then go back and think, okay, why did they reject it? What can I improve in my craft? And I'm actually grateful that I had that experience, because if that novel had been published now, it would have been really, really bad, and it would have caused me great embarrassment for anyone to read it. So it's part of a process in which I learned to be a better writer. I'm still on that journey of trying to be a better writer with each attempt. And so someone said rejection is nature's way of telling you to write a better story. But if you keep plugging away, you'll find you get better and better. And as a result, readers will enjoy what you're doing even more. So I am thankful for that rejection.
If you were to put your a little over 2 decades of writing into one sentence, what would it be?
Only one sentence.
Maybe let's...
It would be fits, starts, chaos, daringness.
All right. So we are reaching the end of this podcast. I want to know what is in store for the readers in the upcoming years, or probably months for that matter.
So the books we've spoken about, The Library Dead and The Legacy of Aniston House, are part of a series called the Edinburgh Nights series. It's a 5-book series, and the 5th book is called Secrets of the First School, in which we conclude this particular series. We've optioned the film and TV rights to Sony, and who knows, the film and TV world is fickle, but hopefully something will be produced with it. But I'm going to move into writing a duology, a 2-book series after this. So I'm excited, even though I have a sense of wistfulness and loss that I'm no longer working with these fantastic characters. I'm excited to be moving on to something new.
Great. Good stuff, and great stuff ahead of us. Thank you so much, Mr. Huchu, for this session. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I hope to see you back over here again for another author talk, and also for a podcast for that matter.
Thank you for having me. You are a fantastic interlocutor, and I have enjoyed my time here so much. Thank you.
Thank you.